How to grow up faster, or thinking outside of the box. Let us begin with a kind of a conspiracy theory. You live in a box, some say a prison with invisible walls. While the box is emergent and not designed, it is enforced. Because your representatives assume that if they listen to you, you will destabilize the entire box and everything will fall apart. So they protect it. They will let you live the pretty silly fantasy of pursuits of happiness, a thing that should end you, while ensuring that real education and universal basic income will never pass. As evidence, they will point to drug legalization, gangs, protests, and Brexit even, and laugh amongst themselves while saying, if we let them have what they want, they will destroy themselves and the country. But that is a kind of madness, a group confabulation, broken groupthink, desire to feel superior to the poor, and an overwhelming amount of greed and stupidity. There is no better explanation for this madness of just looking at symptoms and making crap up to fit their preconceived notions and wants than an old lonesome quote by the dear Kurt Vonnegut. True terror is to wake up one morning and discover that your high school class is running the country. Yep, the world leaders and representatives are not grown-ups. They are just aged 19-year-olds. They didn't create the box, it emerged out of complexity and chaos of the human condition, but they reinforce it because they don't know anything other than what they tell each other in hush-hush tones. It's one of those, forget what you've learned in college, kid. Here's what really goes on behind the closed doors. Resisting any and all change goes really well with all this. Since they don't know how to do anything, they don't have to do anything. Let's take a look at drug legalization for a moment to contrast what they see with what is really going on. Drug use is a mental disorder, not an incurable disease, but a serious disorder. It is born from pain, poverty, fear, terror, homelessness, isolation, loss, hopelessness, depression, and sometimes, yes, pre-existing conditions. But our minds can heal and are flexible. Psychologists don't know everything. A healthy person wouldn't do drugs. They would in fact see the proposition of doing them as basically pissing into their own brain or worse. It's not in them to reach out for drugs. They're alive, they're healthy, they're complete, they're strong. They don't need it. And indeed, a famous rat experiment shows that when the creatures are treated well, they stop seeking trash relief and live. But the high school class that was running the country at the time criminalized it. For one, it was a great way to get elected. Everyone, you and I included, can agree that drug use is revolting and disgusting. But by criminalizing drugs, they also criminalized feeling pain, poverty, fear, terror, homelessness, isolation, loss, and hopelessness for the people who have no support, who grow up in a culture of drug use, who might not have seen it as something disgusting. And as a result, police started destroying whatever was left of their lives, especially the young people, the most vulnerable of us, suffered. To put a quick and desperate end to all this, in an age of for-profit prisons, without saying a damn word, we started legalizing this disgusting thing. There's no way to stop the prison industry in a world ran by make-believe leaders who get baited and pushed around by people who are much more cunning than they are. The powerful, well-established, multi-generational groups of families behind all the large enterprises that move things around nations. Wherever there's money, a new industry will pop up. It will have no soul, it will have no heart, it will have no eyes, just that old ravenous feeling of greed. Where politicians look down at us for decriminalizing or legalizing the shortest possible way to ruin your life, what really happened is us giving the teenagers who messed up as much room as we can so that they can recover without a criminal record that will destroy whatever is left of their lives. That is, of course, not the story you hear. That is because everyone turns it into whatever they want to believe in. And if they are unable to stop, or in other words, are addicted, they will tell you anything that will win an argument so that they can move on, or whatever is left of them at the moment can move on and get to and through another day. You see the actual result, the effect. An addict can have another day, another chance at recovery without a criminal record. The word recreational is good bait to make decriminalization happen. It will get the votes necessary because people want to think about recreation. But that's not what this is all about. This is not what serious people are voting on. It is not a vote for drugs. It's a vote against the disproportionate mass incarceration of people fractured by the bony hands of poverty. It is a very short-lived fix, though, extremely temporary. Last time I was on my bicycle trail, I saw a bunch of 12-year-olds lined up like Hank Hill and his crew, smoking their older brothers' or dad's mental disorder. There is no way out of addiction without removing the error or terror that put them there in the first place. Which brings us to the meaty part of this strange poem. As soon as it is possible, before pain pushes people into self-medicating by pissing into their brains, we have to get them out of the box, this strange invisible prison, this rat park that is causing all the discomfort and harm and pain. That is just two things that are closely networked or intertwined together, meaning that you can't have one without the other, that we can't do it one thing at a time. It arose out of chaos of the human condition. It is a two-part locking mechanism that must be undone correctly. On one side, you have poverty that will stress you out so hard that you will be unable to read books or learn anything at all. And on the other side is an education which will keep you in poverty, twisting, churning, causing fractures, and yes, even addiction. To break this lock on our box, reinforced by wannabe leaders, from ineffective teachers to useless prime ministers and presidents and the like, we need a matching key which unravels the interdynamics of poverty and education that make such a deadly lock. The key is two parts. On one end, you have effective education that enables children to inherit entire lifetimes of wisdom from books and true adventures. On the other end, the second part is something that you have already been convinced of as being evil or shameful. The end of poverty, today known as the Universal Basic Income Program. To exit the box, you forge a key that is the opposite of what keeps the invisible walls standing. And as a result, the positions of leadership that are today plugged up by spoiled, stupid teens who aged well into their 70s without achieving a damn thing, these positions will become filled with young people who surpassed the mental capacity of these retarded leaders by the time they became 25 or 30. In closing, this incredible world, free from poverty and full of knowledge and wisdom and greatness, can only be created by young people all around the world who hacked the locking mechanism before we forged the key. Not something that many people will do, because it requires puking your guts out in some parking lot from trash food as you rise in your courage, in your dignity, and in your unbreakability to face pain, poverty, fear, terror, homelessness, isolation, loss, and hopelessness without a twitch. Alone, 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 against all the fucking odds. As all your favorite narrated books play in your headphones, granting you all the tools you need, all the culture of great beings that you are missing, and undo the lock. By curing your uneducation and rendering the terror of poverty meaningless. I imagine, like universal basic income, narrated books have also come under an attack, especially by those who don't want to be inconvenienced by not pissing into their brains. But the text on a paper page is the same as musical notation on paper. You wouldn't really listen to a melody on paper. You shouldn't merely read books. We are storytellers and story listeners. To properly inherit wisdom and make connections for more, we need to hear it. If you are willing to take this gut-wrenching journey, then I have some tools for you. Just a few. Two concepts that may be unfamiliar to you at start. Content of character is the thing deep inside our minds, the sum of all our history and how we rose, the thing that sets us apart from everyone else, that makes us unique. I heard those words in a speech by Martin Luther King Jr. on my adventure to the ocean. And the concept of subtle analogies, or reasoning by subtle analogy. This is a pretty definition of wisdom and the precursor to synthesis of wisdom. I found it in a poem called Cosmos with a K, written by Walt Whitman. And I have a sample box for you that you can study, that you can examine and comprehend. It's a much smaller box for a much simpler time. Perhaps most importantly, you will be able to examine the locks, how concepts can combine to create a lock or a finger trap. Be careful here. Most human beings are born to this box, but it is old. It can no longer contain us. It is in fact disintegrating with corruption that now becomes more visible. Do not cling to it. Do not try to fix it. Don't try to get back inside it. This is not a path towards greatness or enlightenment. But rather study it like a detached scientist. Examine how it captures some part of you and perhaps kind of sticks like glue. Begin by searching a popular video site for a video entitled Richard Dawkins, The God Delusion, and Questions and Answers. This should be about 1 hour and 50 minutes long. You may find copies of just the question and answers, but that may be something you may appreciate later. Pay special attention to the timing of the laughter of the students. These are presumably students from very religious families. If you ever lose hope in humanity, the timing of the laughter here shows that the kids are fucking tough. They sense the invisible prison walls. It is a superpower that we are all born with. It is in our nature. Of course, you have to view a couple of hundred of related videos and continue searching. My second recommendation is something more. This video is not just about breaking out of invisible prisons or information delivery. But like in the many books you will encounter in your great journeys, this video helps you inherit not just the wisdom, but also some of the class of these great beings. You befriend them, and in a way start thinking like them, just out of admiration. Thus, you enter their culture. This video is often broken down in 2 parts, and it has a remake, an update with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who wasn't able to join them in the first session. The title is 4 Horsemen, discussion featuring Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Daniel Dennett. Lastly, I have a book recommendation, A Short History of Nearly Everything. It is written by the funny Bill Bryson. There are 2 reasons why this book is special. The opening describes fake education, And the book itself shows you how a normal, healthy person learns. My favorite part is the "not another phylum" bit. It got me to burst out in laughter as I was jogging in an arbor late at night, pondering schools I could never afford to go to. For one, I couldn't afford to pretend that memorization is some form of education. But the most illustrative part is Bryson visiting the stromatolites in Australia. That is how you really learn. And the book you write in the process is, of course, your diploma. If it so happens that you are the person that will fix schools, know that travel is almost as important as knowledge. Our brains need geographic motion, preferably by foot, as in the case of the Triple Crown of hiking, AT, PCT, and CDT. But our world needs massive student exchange programs. This is critical for world peace and escaping boxes and religious indoctrination. Massive student exchange programs that involve multiple, if not all nations, become possible in a world where universal basic income program erases everybody's poverty. In the absence of teachers, you must become a teacher.